Thanks. Here's your lightly paraphrased version. Same length, tone, and articulation style, just a slight reshuffling of wording throughout. This here is the Indo-European language family. It stretches all the way from northern India across to Western Europe. Nearly half the world's population speaks a language that falls under this family, and that includes both you and me. English belongs to this group as well. It's a Germanic language, sharing its roots with others like German, Dutch, and Swedish. Back in the early 5th century, the Romans, who had ruled over England for more than 400 years, pulled out of the island. In the power vacuum they left behind, several Germanic tribes from Denmark and northern Germany made their way over, slowly pushing out the Romano-British and Celtic ways that had been prominent there. Celtic-speaking communities became concentrated in places like Wales, Cornwall, and Scotland, while what we now call England took on a Germanic character. Though these Germanic tribes came from different groups, over time they developed a unified cultural identity. They became known collectively as the Anglo-Saxons. And it's with the Anglo-Saxons that our journey truly begins. Music Old English. The Anglo-Saxons, living across various kingdoms, spoke what we refer to today as Old English. Now, Old English bears very little resemblance to modern English. To us, it's pretty much unreadable. Here's a bit of Old English taken from the epic poem Beowulf, Wet. Vi gardena in geardagum, theodsininga, trim gefrunon, huda ethelingus ellen fremedon. Chances are, none of that made any sense to you. And honestly, that's completely normal. No present-day English speaker would understand that. English has evolved so significantly that Old English feels like a whole other language. Still, even though it's no longer comprehensible, around half of the most commonly used words in English today actually trace back to this Anglo-Saxon origin. Words like water, child, ear, talk, and thee. In general, many of the short everyday words in English come from this ancient version of the language. Now, it's worth noting that Old English wasn't some frozen-in-time tongue. No language ever is. But the biggest shifts in English through the centuries haven't come from inside the language so much as from external forces. One of the first major outside influences came during the Viking invasions that started in the 8th century. These Norsemen from Norway and Denmark swept through northern England, even establishing their own territory called the Danelaw. The Vikings brought with them a language known as Old Norse, the precursor to modern Scandinavian tongues. Its impact on English was mostly in vocabulary. Words like sky, bag, law, hit, and even they have Norse roots. Music Middle English. Then, in 1066, William the Bastard, later known as William the Conqueror, launched an invasion of England with his Norman forces. At the Battle of Hastings, he achieved victory and took control of the land. The Normans, who now made up the ruling class, spoke a dialect of Old French known as Norman French. This became the language of the English elite, while Old English remained the speech of the common people. Over the course of about a century, these two languages began to blend together, giving rise to what we call Middle English. So if you've ever wondered why English, though a Germanic language, has so many words in common with Romance languages like French or Spanish, this is the reason. About 30%, or roughly 10,000, English words actually come from French. You'll often see these in domains like law, religion, and science. This French connection is also the reason why English is packed with synonyms. Multiple words that mean the same thing. English dictionaries tend to be far larger than those of many other languages. A classic example of these synonym pairs can be found in food terms. The words pig, cow, and chicken come from Anglo-Saxon roots. Fitting, since the farmers who raised the animals spoke English. But pork, beef, and poultry all stem from Norman French, because the aristocrats eating the food spoke French. The massive addition of French vocabulary and a streamlining of Old English grammar brought the language a step closer to modern English. Still, Middle English is largely unrecognizable to most modern speakers. Here's an excerpt from Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, probably the most famous Middle English work. Wan that April with his showers suit, the draught of March hath pursed to the root, and bathed every vein in switch liqueur, of which vertu engendered is the flower. Early modern English. In the 15th century, something called the Great Vowel Shift began, and this shift catapulted English into its early modern form. This event dramatically altered how English vowels were pronounced. We won't dive deep into the technical side, because that gets pretty heavy into linguistics. But the basic idea is that long vowel sounds like oo became shorter diphthongs like o. A diphthong, by the way, is just a sound made by combining two vowel sounds. On top of that, a number of consonants went silent, what we now call silent letters. Take the word knife, for example. In Middle English, it was pronounced neef, but after the vowel shift, the K went unspoken, and the E morphed into the diphthong AI. While pronunciation changed significantly, spelling did not, which is one of the key reasons why English spelling is so notoriously hard to master. Over a couple of centuries, English evolved into something much more familiar to us. A good example of early modern English can be found in Shakespeare's writing. Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. That's the opening of Romeo and Juliet. We can mostly understand it, but the vocabulary and phrasing still feel quite removed from how we speak today. Starting in the 16th century, the British began to explore and eventually build an empire. At its peak in the 19th century, the British Empire spanned a quarter of the globe and ruled over nearly a quarter of the world's population. This global spread of English, along with the changes brought by the Industrial Revolution, added even more to the English vocabulary. Colonization introduced new words from around the world, and the rise of new technology meant the invention of many new terms as well. This worldwide spread also led to a number of regional English dialects, especially in North America. Interestingly, the standard American accent, like the one I'm using, is actually closer to how Shakespeare would have sounded than most modern British accents are. American English has had a particularly large impact, largely thanks to the global reach of American pop culture. And English isn't done evolving. It's changing just as quickly as it always has, with new words added to dictionaries regularly and older ones fading out. Grammar shifts are happening too. In a few hundred years, our English might sound as alien to future generations as Chaucer's does to us. Music. Let me know if you want a version tailored for voiceover, subtitles, or visual timing.